He never chased fame, he never chased headlines, and he never chased fast growth. What Michele Ferrero chased quietly, obsessively, for nearly 70 years was perfection. Not the kind of perfection that demands applause or seeks validation, but the kind that hides behind discipline, restraint, and an almost uncomfortable patience. From a modest pastry shop in northern Italy, Ferrero built one of the most powerful food companies in the world. A chocolate empire worth over $40 billion, built not on speed, marketing spectacles, or financial leverage, but on silence, secrecy, and an uncompromising obsession with quality. Still private, still debt-free, still family-owned. In an era where companies race toward IPOs, chase quarterly growth, and burn capital to buy attention, Ferrero's existence feels almost unnatural. It grew slowly, deliberately, and often invisibly. While competitors shouted, Ferrero listened. While others expanded recklessly, Ferrero refined. And while many brands chased trends, Ferrero protected something far more fragile: trust. To understand why Ferrero became what it is, you have to go far from boardrooms and balance sheets deep into the hills of northwestern Italy. Michele Ferrero was born in 1925 near Alba, in Italy's Langhe region. This was not a place of abundance. The land was beautiful, but life was hard. The economy revolved around agriculture, not industry. Families lived close to the edge, where waste was unthinkable and nothing was taken for granted. Every resource had to be respected, stretched, and reused. Scarcity wasn't an abstract concept. It was a daily reality. But within that scarcity existed one quiet abundance: hazelnuts. For generations, the Lang Hills had produced hazelnuts in large quantities. Long before Ferrero's rise, local confectioners had learned how to use them creatively, especially during difficult times. Hazelnuts could be ground, blended, and stretched in ways cocoa could not. They were forgiving, flexible, reliable. That knowledge became decisive after World War II. Italy emerged from the war economically shattered. Infrastructure was damaged. Imports were unreliable. Cocoa, which had to be sourced from abroad, became scarce and expensive. Chocolate, once a simple pleasure, turned into a luxury that most families could no longer afford. For many, chocolate disappeared entirely. But Michele's father, Pietro Ferrero, refused to accept that reality. He understood something fundamental. People didn't just miss chocolate for its taste. They missed it for what it represented: normalcy, comfort, a small moment of sweetness in lives defined by uncertainty. Instead of abandoning chocolate, Pietro asked a different question: how do you preserve pleasure when resources are limited? His answer was deceptively simple. He increased the proportion of hazelnuts and reduced the reliance on cocoa. By blending the two, he created a chocolate hazelnut paste that delivered indulgence at a fraction of the cost of traditional chocolate. This wasn't a compromise, it was an innovation born from constraint. The product was sold not as a luxury, but as something far more important: accessibility. It was affordable, filling, and emotionally satisfying. Families who could no longer buy chocolate could once again bring something sweet into their homes. Locally, it became known as the chocolate of the poor, but the phrase carried no insult, it carried gratitude. In a time when little else was reliable, this simple spread offered reassurance. It was proof that comfort didn't have to disappear just because circumstances were harsh. Michele Ferrero grew up inside this world. His childhood was shaped by sacks of hazelnuts, warm vats of paste, and the constant rhythm of production. But more importantly, it was shaped by observation. He watched customers carefully. He saw how they reacted, how they smiled, how something small, a slice of bread with a thin layer of sweetness, could momentarily lift the weight of difficult lives. He learned early that food was never just fuel. Food could restore dignity. Food could provide emotional stability. Food could make people feel human again. This understanding embedded itself deeply into his worldview. Michele never forgot what it meant to lack resources. And he never forgot the responsibility that came with creating something people relied on not just physically, but emotionally. To him, sweets were not indulgences. They were quiet comforts. That belief became the foundation of everything he would later build. As Michele grew older, he didn't approach the family business as a means to personal success. He approached it as a duty. A responsibility inherited not only from his father, but from the community that trusted their product. The business was never separate from the people it served. Every decision carried moral weight. This perspective explains so much about what Ferrero would later become, and what it would deliberately refuse to become. He would never chase fast growth if it risked quality. He would never seek publicity if it invited imitation. He would never take shortcuts if they threatened trust. The idea of selling inferior products to increase margins was unthinkable to him. If people were relying on his creations for comfort, then those creations had to be worthy of that trust every single time. Even as Ferrero expanded beyond Alba, beyond Italy, and eventually beyond Europe, the company carried the psychology of its origins. Scarcity bred discipline, poverty bred empathy, and constraint bred invention. Ferrero's products were never designed to impress investors, they were designed to earn loyalty. This mindset would later explain why Ferrero resisted trends that dominated the global business world, why it avoided debt, why it refused to go public, why it chose secrecy over the spotlight, why it built slowly while others raced ahead. At its core, Ferrero was never a company driven by ambition alone, it was driven by memory, the memory of scarcity, the memory of responsibility, and the memory of what it felt like to offer something small but meaningful to people who had very little. Long before Ferrero became a global empire, before Nutella became a household name, before Kinder and Ferrero Rocher appeared on shelves around the world, the philosophy was already complete. Michele's father, Pietro, laid the groundwork with his hazelnut paste, but it was Michele who took that foundation and turned it into an art form. He wasn't content with just a good product. He was obsessed with creating the perfect product. When he took over the company, his father's creation was a solid block of paste that had to be sliced with a knife. Michele envisioned something different. He wanted a cream, something smooth and spreadable that could be enjoyed effortlessly. He spent years relentlessly experimenting, tweaking the formula, adjusting temperatures, and refining the texture until he achieved the silky, creamy consistency we know today as Nutella. This wasn't just a product improvement. It was a reimagining of the entire experience. But Michele's obsession didn't stop there. He understood that a great product needed a great name and a great container. The original name, Super Crema, was functional but lacked emotion. Michele wanted a name that felt universal, that combined the core ingredient nuts with a soft, friendly Italian ending. And so, Nutella was born. He then designed the iconic glass jar, a container that wasn't just practical but also reusable. In post-war homes, that empty jar became a drinking glass, a storage container, a small piece of utility that extended the product's value long after the contents were gone. It was a nod to the scarcity he grew up with, a gesture of respect for the customer. This obsession with every single detail became the company's trademark. Take Ferrero Rocher. The idea was to bring the experience of a high-end chocolatier into every home. He wanted to create a multi-sensory experience. The crunch of the wafer, the smoothness of the cream, the whole hazelnut at the center, all wrapped in elegant gold foil. Each element was meticulously engineered. He famously spent years perfecting the thin spherical wafer shell, a technical feat that other chocolatiers had deemed impossible. He would visit the factories unannounced, sometimes in the middle of the night, to taste products directly from the line. If a batch didn't meet his impossibly high standards, he would have the entire production run destroyed. No compromise was ever acceptable. This wasn't about ego. It was about his unwavering belief that the customer deserved only the best. He felt a personal responsibility for every single chocolate that left his factory. His secrecy was just as legendary as his perfectionism. The formulas for Nutella, Kinder, and Rocher were, and still are, among the most closely guarded secrets in the food industry. He built his factories in small, remote towns, often providing housing and social infrastructure for his employees. In return, he expected absolute loyalty and discretion. This wasn't about being paranoid. It was about protecting the magic. He knew that imitators would rush to copy his creations, but they could never copy the soul, the years of obsessive refinement that went into each product. By keeping his methods secret, he wasn't just protecting a recipe. He was protecting his life's work and the trust his customers placed in him. While other companies poured money into advertising, Ferrero poured it into research, development, and quality control. He believed the product itself was the best marketing. If it was truly exceptional, people would talk about it, they would share it, they would come back for it. And they did. The brand grew not through loud campaigns, but through quiet, word-of-mouth loyalty, passed from one generation to the next. This slow, deliberate, and intensely personal approach is what makes the Ferrero story so unique in the modern business world. It's a story of a man who measured success not in quarterly earnings, but in the consistent quality of a single chocolate. A man who saw his customers not as data points, but as families seeking a small moment of joy. Michele Ferrero built a $40 billion empire by staying small in his mindset. He remembered where he came from, a small town in Italy where resources were scarce but ingenuity was abundant. Have you ever wondered how a simple jar of Nutella became a global icon? Or how those little golden Ferrero Rocher chocolates appeared at every celebration? The story isn't about flashy marketing or a celebrity founder. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's the story of a man who built a multi-billion-dollar empire by staying almost completely invisible. His name was Michele Ferrero, and his strategy was silence. When Michele took the reins of his family's business, he laid down one simple rule. Ferrero would never be a loud company. No dramatic founder stories, no public interviews, no personal branding. While other CEOs were chasing the spotlight, Michele became one of the most powerful and yet most unknown business leaders in Europe. This wasn't shyness. It was a calculated strategy. He believed that the more a company talked, the less it listened. And listening, especially to customers, was where the real magic happened. He wanted Ferrero's products to do the talking, not the executives. So, while competitors poured money into celebrity endorsements and aggressive advertising, Ferrero invested in something far less glamorous: the process. Every single ingredient was tested with relentless obsession. Every recipe was guarded with a level of secrecy you'd expect from a government agency. Their factories operated under standards so strict that even the tiniest deviation was a crisis. Michele himself would personally review everything, from the chemical formula of a cream to the design of the packaging. To outsiders, it seemed obsessive, almost paranoid. But to Michele, it was about survival. He knew that in the world of food, trust is fragile. One bad jar, one stale chocolate, could erase years of customer loyalty. Ferrero would never take that risk. This obsession with quality directly led to one of the world's most beloved products. Before Nutella, chocolate spreads were often sold in loose blocks. Ferrero took that idea and perfected it, creating something smoother, more stable, and with a longer shelf life. In the 1960s, they relaunched it with a new name, one designed to travel the world: Nutella. The name itself was genius. Nut, for the essential hazelnuts, and ella, a soft feminine suffix in Italian suggesting warmth and comfort. It sounded friendly, approachable, and international. It didn't feel like a cold, corporate product. It felt like something that belonged in your kitchen. And that was the key. Nutella wasn't marketed as a luxury dessert or a special treat. It was presented as a part of everyday life. It was for breakfast toast, for after-school snacks, for family routines. Ferrero understood a deep human truth that many global brands miss. People don't form deep bonds with luxury items they use once a year. They form bonds with habits. Nutella became woven into the fabric of daily life, quietly winning over one family at a time. Their expansion followed the same quiet, patient philosophy. Ferrero entered new countries slowly, painfully slowly by today's standards. Before launching anywhere, they would meticulously set up local supply chains, adapt the taste to local preferences, and build production facilities that met their impossibly high internal standards. If the conditions weren't perfect, they simply waited. There was no rush. This drove competitors crazy and confused market analysts. Ferrero had the demand, it had the brand recognition, but it refused to scale quickly. Michele Ferrero had a core belief. Growth without control wasn't growth at all, it was erosion. This philosophy also guided how they created new products. Instead of flooding the market with dozens of variations, Ferrero focused on a small, curated family of brands. Each one had a clear purpose and a unique emotional connection. The Kinder line was designed for children, but it wasn't just a sugar rush. It emphasized portion control, high milk content, and building trust with parents. Ferrero Rocher was positioned as affordable elegance, a premium-feeling gift that was out of reach for the average person. Nothing was accidental. Each product was crafted to serve a specific emotional need. Behind the scenes, the company's secrecy became legendary. Recipes were compartmentalized. An employee might only know one small step of the process, never the full formula. Factories were like fortresses, and documentation was kept to a minimum. Michele believed that protecting this knowledge was the only way to protect the quality that defined the brand. But the secrecy wasn't just about hiding from competitors, it was a form of discipline. Michele Ferrero had no interest in being the biggest company in the world. He repeatedly turned down mergers, acquisitions, and offers to take the company public, all of which would have compromised the family's independence. The company avoided debt almost entirely, growing only with the cash it generated itself. Slowly, carefully, deliberately. This approach made no sense to Wall Street, which worships rapid, debt-fueled growth. But it created something far more valuable than a high short-term stock price: absolute control. By the time Ferrero was a household name around the world, it had achieved something almost unheard of in modern capitalism. It was a multinational empire that answered to no one but the family. There was no pressure to meet quarterly earnings targets, no activist investors demanding cost-cutting, no outside forces dictating strategy. Only one metric truly mattered: quality. Michele Ferrero ran the company this way for decades. He almost never appeared in public or gave interviews. Many of his own employees never even met him. Yet his presence was felt everywhere in the systems, the standards, and the unyielding expectations for perfection. Ferrero wasn't a cult of personality centered on a charismatic leader. It was a cult of precision. By the early 2000s, Ferrero had become one of the largest confectionery companies on earth, with products sold in over 170 countries and revenues in the tens of billions, and still it remained private. Still debt-free. Still family-owned. Michele Ferrero passed away in 2015, leaving behind more than just a successful business. He left behind a philosophy, a blueprint for how to build an empire quietly, patiently, and with restraint in a world that's addicted to speed and noise. The story of Ferrero proves that you don't need to shout to dominate a market, you don't need hype to build an enduring brand, and you don't need to chase reckless growth to build an empire. By the time Nutella was a household name in Italy, its creator, Michele Ferrero, was already dreaming bigger. He saw a world beyond national borders, but his vision for expansion was radically different from his competitors. It wasn't about speed. It was about control, consistency, and earning unwavering trust. He understood a fundamental truth most companies overlooked: a brand can only conquer the world if it holds onto its soul. To Ferrero, a product wasn't just a recipe. It was a promise. And every single promise had to be kept, no matter how far that product traveled. He wanted to scale the craftsmanship of a baker without losing the quality. Every machine was treated as an extension of human hands. He obsessed over designing the perfect roasting systems for hazelnuts, guaranteeing that every single batch, every single time, met the exact same standard. It shielded his products from fluctuating market prices, bad harvests, and the games competitors might play. More importantly, it ensured that the core flavor and quality of his products would be identical for consumers on every continent. Ferrero's expansion was a masterclass in patience. Instead of flooding new markets all at once, he entered countries slowly. This slow, deliberate pace frustrated rivals who were used to aggressive, short-term strategies. But for Ferrero, this patience became his ultimate competitive advantage. In 1964, Nutella was officially launched internationally, and it became an instant sensation. Families who loved the product told other families. The emotional connection that had been built in Italy translated across cultures, across the globe. From breakfast tables in Paris to kitchens in Sydney, Nutella became more than just a chocolate spread, it became a beloved ritual. And rituals, once they become part of your life, are incredibly hard to break. But Michele Ferrero knew he couldn't rest on Nutella alone. He understood that to sustain growth, he had to diversify his offerings, but always with the same core philosophy, delivering emotional comfort through exceptional quality. While other companies chased trends, Ferrero created classics. Kinder chocolate, introduced in the 1960s, was designed with children in mind but earned the trust of parents. Then came Kinder Surprise, an ingenious idea that merged the joy of chocolate with the thrill of play, creating an entire experience that went far beyond just taste. Every single product, though different, echoed the same foundational principles. Never compromise on quality, never rush the process, and always put the consumer first. To personify this principle, Ferrero invented a fictional character he called Mrs. Valeria. She was the ultimate customer. Every single decision, from a new product idea to a marketing strategy, was judged by one simple question. Would Mrs. Valeria approve? Would she buy it? She wasn't just a metaphor. She was the company's most important metric. Ferrero would constantly remind his employees, if Mrs. Valeria buys it, we succeed. If she doesn't, we fail. By the late 20th century, Ferrero had quietly become a global powerhouse. Nutella was sold in over 170 countries. Kinder, Tic Tac, and Ferrero Rocher had become fixtures in households worldwide. The company's revenue soared into the tens of billions. Yet, it remained private, family-owned, and completely debt-free, a true anomaly in the world of modern global capitalism. While competitors were frantically chasing quarterly growth reports and fleeting market trends, Ferrero was playing the long game. Failures weren't thrown away. They were studied, dissected, and used as valuable lessons to guide the next innovation. But because of this painstaking process, when Ferrero finally introduced them to the world, they were almost flawless. Michele Ferrero also understood the nuances of cultural adaptation. While the core of Nutella remained proudly Italian, the packaging, marketing, and even subtle aspects of the taste were adjusted to respect local customs and preferences. It ensured Ferrero felt both globally recognizable and locally relatable, building trust across diverse cultures. This meticulous approach extended to succession planning. Michele Ferrero never took for granted that the leadership of his empire could be easily passed on. Responsibility, patience, secrecy, and a consumer-first mindset were drilled in from day one. Family members learned every facet of the company, from the factory floors to the boardroom, ensuring the culture and values would endure. By the early 21st century, the company had built a global supply chain that few could even dream of rivaling. It was a completely vertically integrated empire: farms, factories, proprietary machines, logistics networks, and research labs, all connected by a single unwavering philosophy. Control was everything. Every step of the production process was monitored, refined, and standardized. There was simply no room for error, because any mistake could chip away at decades of hard-earned trust. The recent introduction of Nutella plant-based caters to new consumer needs while excessively maintaining that signature creamy texture. The company's commitment to using certified sustainable palm oil addresses modern environmental concerns while protecting the integrity of the product. But even with this modernization, the guiding principles haven't changed. Quality first, trust above all, cautious growth, and fiercely protected independence. Michele Ferrero passed away on Valentine's Day in 2015 at the age of 89. In a simple but powerful tribute, the company's website displayed just one sentence: "We are proud of you." Thank you, Michele. His philosophy continues to guide the company he built, proving that a slow, thoughtful. When Michele Ferrero passed away in 2015, the world had already witnessed something extraordinary. A single family-run business from a small town in Italy had become a global confectionery powerhouse. Ferrero wasn't just a chocolate maker anymore. It had become a symbol of discipline, patience, and meticulous care. A living testament to what can be achieved when ambition is guided by responsibility and a long-term vision. Yet, despite its massive global presence, the company remained remarkably private. There were no flashy public statements, no celebrity endorsements, and no noisy IPOs. Ferrero did something almost unimaginable in the modern business world. It expanded globally without ever sacrificing its founding principles. The modern Ferrero empire spans continents. Its operations stretch from hazelnut orchards in Turkey and Italy, where raw materials are harvested under strict conditions, to state-of-the-art factories in Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Every machine, every process reflects Michele Ferrero's obsession with precision and consistency. The same philosophy that guided a small pastry shop in Alba now governs an empire producing billions of chocolates, spreads, and candies every year. Vertical integration is a cornerstone of Ferrero's strategy. By owning and controlling its own hazelnut farms, processing plants, and even machinery, Ferrero ensures that every product meets the uncompromising standards set decades ago. This control shields the brand from market fluctuations and from competitors trying to replicate its success. Nutella, Ferrero Rocher, Kinder, and Tic Tac aren't just products. They are the tangible results of decades of meticulous planning and disciplined execution. Modern Ferrero also shows a rare ability to adapt without compromise. The introduction of Nutella plant-based caters to vegan and lactose-intolerant consumers, ensuring that evolving dietary preferences don't erode the product's core identity. Sustainability initiatives, like using certified sustainable palm oil, reflect a balance between environmental responsibility and product integrity. Ferrero carefully navigates these modern pressures without ever sacrificing the quality or consistency that defines its brand. But what truly sets Ferrero apart in today's world of hyper-aggressive business tactics is its commitment to a long-term vision. While many companies focus on quarterly earnings and shareholder satisfaction, Ferrero operates on a decades-long timeline. New products are tested quietly with small consumer groups, refined repeatedly, and sometimes take years, or even a decade to perfect. Failures aren't discarded. They are studied as signals pointing toward potential improvements. The result is a product portfolio where every single item is vetted for perfection before it ever reaches a global audience. Succession planning at Ferrero has been just as deliberate. Michele Ferrero recognized that the sustainability of his vision depended on transferring not just ownership, but a philosophy. The next generation was trained to understand the core values that had guided the company for decades: responsibility, patience, secrecy, and a consumer-first mindset. This ensured that the company remained independent, disciplined, and aligned with its founding ethos, even as leadership evolved. Globally, Ferrero has stayed relevant by understanding cultural adaptation without dilution. Nutella's recipe might be universal, but its packaging, marketing, and portioning are subtly adapted to meet local preferences. This strategy ensures that while the brand remains recognizably Ferrero, it resonates meaningfully with consumers across different countries, languages, and cultures. Financially, Ferrero's discipline has produced extraordinary results. Despite avoiding debt and refusing to go public, the company's revenue reached tens of billions of dollars annually, cementing its position as one of the most profitable and stable family-owned businesses in the world. This independence has given Ferrero a unique advantage: the ability to focus on quality, trust, and longevity rather than short-term financial gains. Beyond the balance sheets, Ferrero's legacy lies in its employee culture. Staff are trained not just as workers but as guardians of a philosophy. Fair treatment, education support, medical assistance, and secure working conditions reflect a management style rooted in Michele Ferrero's early experiences of scarcity and responsibility. Employees understand that their dedication is respected, not exploited, creating a loyalty that strengthens the company's stability. The brand's influence extends far beyond the product shelves. Ferrero has subtly shaped global consumption patterns, food culture, and even childhood experiences. Nutella is a fixture on breakfast tables worldwide. Kinder Surprise introduced joy and play into daily routines. Ferrero Rocher transformed chocolate gifting into a global ritual. Even Tic Tac revolutionized how we think about mints. These products have become cultural touchstones, remembered and loved across generations. The story of Ferrero is also a story of strategic secrecy. Michele Ferrero knew that visibility invited imitation, and imitation threatened excellence. Factories remain highly controlled environments, recipes are tightly guarded. Publicity is minimal. For decades, Ferrero avoided interviews, press conferences, and factory tours, choosing instead to protect its intellectual and operational capital. Yet, for all its secrecy, Ferrero's story is deeply human. It's a story of empathy, patience, and responsibility, a reminder that a business's true power lies in the trust it earns from people. Michele Ferrero's vision was never about chasing money or fame. It was about creating something meaningful, a product that provided comfort, joy, and reliability, even in a world full of uncertainty. The modern Ferrero continues to embody these principles. While competitors chase trends, Ferrero patiently innovates. While others cut corners for profit, Ferrero maintains meticulous quality. And while the world demands constant growth, Ferrero chooses to expand cautiously, preserving its legacy and protecting the families, employees, and consumers who depend on it. In the end, Ferrero is more than a company. It's a testament to the power of patience, careful planning, and emotional intelligence in business. It proves that empires can grow quietly, deliberately, and ethically, and still achieve global dominance. For those watching, the takeaway is clear. Building something that lasts requires more than ambition. It requires discipline, empathy, and a relentless focus on doing things right, even when no one is watching. Ferrero's story teaches us that real success is about trust, quality, and legacy, not just profit or scale. And now, if you want to see more stories like this, real journeys of iconic brands, revealing lessons and strategies you won't find in textbooks, subscribe to Rise Chrono. Turn on notifications and join our community of curious minds.